Have you ever wondered why you wake up exhausted, even after a full night's sleep? Why your anxiety, your regrets, your anger seem to follow you into every new day like shadows that never fade? Most people treat sleep as an escape, but the Stoics knew better. Sleep is not an end, it's a beginning. A sacred time when your subconscious keeps working, absorbing, and shaping who you are becoming. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And your last thoughts before sleep, they're powerful. They set the emotional tone of your night and silently shape your morning. In this video, we explore 10 Stoic-based principles to reprogram your mind while you sleep. You'll learn how to let go of negativity before bed, how to use affirmations, visualization, and intentional reflection to turn sleep into your most powerful tool for clarity, healing, and self-mastery. So if you're ready to stop carrying yesterday's pain into tomorrow, like, subscribe, and let's begin.
Number 1.
Your brain is always listening. Even while your body sleeps, your mind remains active in the background. Not consciously, but in the deep, silent realm of the subconscious. It listens, it absorbs, it discerns, it processes every word, emotion, and image you feed it before bed. The Stoics understood this truth long before modern science confirmed it. The mind never truly shuts off. It simply turns inward, quietly sculpting your next thoughts, behaviors, and identity. And what you feed it in those final moments determines whether you wake up lighter or heavier than when you lay down. Marcus Aurelius knew this well. Each night, he wrote in meditations not to impress others, but to train his own mind. His reflections weren't passive, they were acts of spiritual hygiene. He used words to sweep out emotional clutter, to end each day with purpose rather than passivity. The things you think about determine the quality of your mind, he wrote. And what better time to choose quality than in the hour before sleep, when your defenses are down and your soul is listening the most. Today, neuroscience confirms what the Stoics practiced centuries ago. As we drift into sleep, our brains shift into alpha and theta states, zones of heightened suggestibility. In this twilight space, the subconscious opens like a gate. What enters, whether it's a toxic thought, a harsh word, or a calming affirmation, seeps deep into your nervous system. Your body may be still, but your mind is recording everything. So imagine going to bed angry, or scrolling through social media filled with fear, comparison, and noise. That emotional residue doesn't vanish. It lingers. It shapes your dreams. It tightens your chest. It keeps your nervous system locked in survival mode. And the worst part, most people do this every single night and wonder why they wake up anxious and unmotivated. That's not rest. That's psychological inflammation disguised as sleep. Now contrast that with Viktor Frankl, a man who survived the horrors of a Nazi concentration camp. In the darkest environment imaginable, he chose to turn his focus toward love, toward meaning, toward the image of his wife. Each night, before closing his eyes, he didn't escape reality. He rewired how he faced it. That wasn't wishful thinking. That was mental discipline. His nights weren't an escape. They were his rebirth. This is Stoicism in action. You may not control the world outside, but you do control what enters your mind before sleep. And that control is no small thing. The Stoics treated the mind like a sacred garden. If you plant seeds of peace, clarity, and virtue before rest, you wake stronger. If you neglect it, weeds of fear and confusion take root. Modern research echoes this truth. People who reflect, visualize, or speak gentle affirmations before bed show lower cortisol, deeper sleep, and greater resilience. That's not theory, it's biology shaped by belief. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you respond that matters." And your last waking thoughts? That's your response. Choose stillness. Choose intention. Because the thoughts you fall asleep with are the ones that shape the person you become.
Number 2.
Your last thoughts shape your night. The final thoughts you entertain before sleep are not harmless background noise. They are the emotional tone setters of your subconscious. They become the default scripts your brain replays throughout the night, whether you're aware of them or not. In Stoic philosophy, this truth is central. Your inner life creates your outer experience. And if you go to sleep with a mind full of chaos, regret, or worry, your subconscious carries that tension through the night like a storm trapped beneath your skin. Seneca once warned, "A man is as wretched as he has convinced himself that he is." Shui or think about that. If your last thought is self-pity, your mind will search your memories for reasons to validate it. If your final emotion is anger, your nervous system stays on alert, even in your dreams. And if your closing feeling is gratitude or peace, your body rests, your breathing deepens, your immune system activates. Your last emotion is the doorway to your nervous system's overnight programming. This is not just ancient wisdom. Sleep researchers now know that the brain continues to process emotional content from the day, especially in the final 1 to 2 hours before bed. During REM sleep, your brain literally rehearses your dominant beliefs and emotional states. So if you fall asleep thinking you're not enough, or that life is against you, that narrative won't just echo. It will become more deeply wired into your sense of identity. Sleep becomes not a reset, but a reinforcement. That's why the Stoics recommended evening rituals. Not for comfort, but for clarity. Epictetus instructed his students to review the day with precision. What did I do right? What did I do wrong? What did I leave undone? Not with guilt, but with reason. This ritual isn't about perfection. It's about planting the right mental seeds before rest. By choosing to reflect with honesty and calm, you create space for wisdom to emerge. And in that space, real transformation can take root. Consider Leonardo da Vinci. Each night before sleep, he wouldn't just draw, he would question himself. What did I learn today? How could this be improved? He fell asleep in a state of curiosity, not criticism. And that mindset became the fuel of his genius. His nightly thoughts weren't idle. They were deliberate. They weren't random. They were rituals of growth. And that discipline showed up in every invention he left behind. In your own life, this means being intentional. Don't fall asleep to noise you'll forget. Don't let the final moments of your day be filled with distraction or regret. Instead, close your day like a Stoic, by turning inward, by observing without judgment, by deliberately planting the emotions and thoughts you want to carry forward. Say something kind to yourself. Think of one thing you're proud of. Breathe deeply. And if your mind wants to spiral, remind it gently. This is where I reset. This is where I choose peace. Because the night doesn't erase your pain. It magnifies what you bring into it. And if your last thoughts are heavy, your whole night will carry that weight. But if they are light, anchored in purpose, truth, or self-respect, you will wake lighter, clearer, stronger.
Number 3.
Words become biology. We like to think that words are just sounds, just symbols we toss into the air. But the Stoics and modern science knew better. Words are not neutral. Words are signals. Every time you speak, especially to yourself, you are shaping not only your thoughts, but your body's chemistry. You're either calming your nervous system or activating your stress response. You're either healing or hurting yourself. Epictetus said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about things." Now, what are judgments if not words? Internal narratives, silent scripts. And those scripts, repeated often enough, become commands to the body. Tell yourself you're weak and your posture collapses. Tell yourself you're unsafe and your heart races. Tell yourself you can't handle something, and your immune system literally downshifts. This isn't metaphor. It's measurable. Studies in psychoneuroimmunology now confirm what ancient philosophers sensed intuitively. Your thoughts, especially repeated verbal thoughts, change the way your brain regulates hormones, neurotransmitters, even inflammation. That means the language you use, especially before sleep, becomes part of your cellular operating system. And while most people speak to themselves with criticism, guilt, and fear, they wonder why their bodies are exhausted, inflamed, and restless. It's because their words have become their biology. The Stoics understood this power and treated speech with reverence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." But more than that, he knew that words were a form of training. Each entry in Meditations wasn't just a reflection, it was a reprogramming. By speaking to himself with clarity and discipline, he aligned his body, mind, and spirit toward virtue. That's the core Stoic practice. Not just thinking right, but speaking right, especially to the self. Take Maya Angelou as a modern example. A poet, a survivor, and a woman of immense dignity, she once said, "Words are things. You must be careful. They get on the walls, they get in your rugs, in your upholstery, and your clothes, and finally into you." Her life was a living example of this truth. She transformed trauma not by denying pain, but by choosing her language with power and purpose. And through her words, she rewired her identity. So how do you apply this before sleep? First, become conscious of your self-talk. What do you say to yourself when the world gets quiet? Do you replay insults, regrets, or do you remind yourself of your strength, your resilience, your progress? Second, speak with intention. Don't whisper defeat into your mind and expect peace to follow. Use affirmations not as slogans, but as shields. Say one, "I am safe, and I did my best today, so I will wake restored." Your nervous system doesn't need poetry, it needs consistency. Repetition. Safety. And finally, remember, you are the author of your internal script. Every word you think and speak tonight becomes part of your biology by morning. So speak like someone who wants to heal. Speak like someone who wants to live with strength. Because in the end, your words don't just describe your life, they design it.
Number 4.
Use repetition to rewire. Your brain is not a fixed machine. It's a living system, a pattern-making engine. And what shapes its patterns more than anything else is repetition. The Stoics understood this long before neuroscience had a name for it. What you do daily, what you tell yourself consistently, what you dwell on in silence, these things form the grooves in your mind. Not once, but over and over again. That's how character is built. That's how identity is formed. Not in bursts, but in echoes. Marcus Aurelius returned to the same themes every night in Meditations. He didn't write once about letting go of anger. He wrote it hundreds of times. Why? Because he knew his first thought would not always be wise. But with repetition, it could become reflex. He trained his emotions the way a soldier trains the body. Through drills, through repetition, through daily exposure to the same principles. Repetition is not for the forgetful. It's for the disciplined. It's for those who know that transformation comes not from knowing, but from doing, again and again. Modern neuroscience confirms what the Stoics practiced. The principle is called neuroplasticity. It means your brain is constantly being reshaped by experience. Repeating a new behavior or belief strengthens the synaptic connections that carry it. Repeating a harmful one, like self-criticism or fear, does the same. And the time just before sleep is especially sensitive. In that quiet window, your mind is highly open to suggestion. So every night you have a choice. Reinforce old pain or encode a new pattern. This is why affirmations matter. Not because they're magical, but because they're mechanical. Spoken with sincerity, they serve as rewiring tools. Each repetition becomes a micro-adjustment to your nervous system. Each time you say, "I am enough," your brain builds a new route. Each time you say, "I choose peace," your body responds with a biochemical shift. And over time, that shift becomes your baseline. What was once effort becomes instinct. What was once foreign becomes familiar. But don't confuse repetition with perfection. Stoicism doesn't ask for flawlessness. It asks for persistence. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Why? Because repeating a better way of thinking often feels awkward at first. It feels unnatural. You may even resist it, but that discomfort is the friction of rewiring. That's what growth actually feels like. Not ease, but effort. A modern example, look at Muhammad Ali. He didn't just become the greatest boxer by talent. He became the greatest because he repeated a message to himself so often that it became a part of him. I am the greatest, he said, long before the world believed him. That mantra wasn't arrogance. It was intention. It was mental conditioning built on deliberate repetition. He wasn't just shaping his identity, he was sculpting it word by word. So tonight, choose one truth you want your brain to absorb, one message you want to echo until it becomes second nature, and repeat it. Not 5 times, not 10, but until your body starts to believe it before your mind does. Because in the end, you don't rise to the level of your potential. You fall to the level of your patterns, and your patterns are built quietly, consistently, night after night, through repetition.
Number 5.
Remove negativity before sleep. Your body can't heal if your mind is still holding on to poison. And yet that's exactly what most people do every night. They carry their stress, their arguments, their bitterness, their fears, all the emotional toxins of the day straight into bed. Then they wonder why they wake up tired, tense, or defeated. The Stoics warned us, do not carry what you cannot control. But we do, not because we want to suffer, but because we never learned how to release. Seneca wrote, "He who suffers before it is necessary, suffers more than is necessary." And that's what unresolved emotion does. It becomes a second injury. The event happened once, but your mind replays it 100 times. Before sleep, that loop becomes even louder. The silence of the night amplifies what you never processed during the day. And instead of rest, you enter into psychological battle. Your nervous system stays alert. Your thoughts become tense. Your body cannot drop into the deep states it needs to truly restore. But there is another way. The Stoics practiced what we might now call emotional hygiene. It wasn't dramatic or spiritual, it was practical. Each night they performed inner cleaning. Marcus Aurelius reflected on what angered him, not to wallow in it, but to understand it. He would ask, why did this bother me? Was this really under my control? Was my reaction virtuous? In doing so, he emptied his mind of poison and returned to clarity. He knew that if he didn't drop it, it would carry over. And what you carry into sleep, you carry into life. This is why modern therapies like journaling, gratitude practice, and breathwork are so effective. They aren't trends. They are translations of timeless wisdom. Writing down your frustrations, forgiving someone, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Taking 5 slow breaths to remind your nervous system that the war's over. These are not luxuries, they are survival tools, especially in a world that rewards overstimulation and emotional suppression. Look at Nelson Mandela. After 27 years in prison, he had every reason to be bitter. But he once said, resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies. He made a conscious choice not to carry hatred into his next chapter. Not because it was easy, but because he understood that peace begins with subtraction, that clarity begins with letting go. His freedom didn't begin when the prison doors opened. It began the moment he chose release over revenge. So tonight, before you close your eyes, ask yourself, what am I still carrying that no longer serves me? Who am I mentally arguing with? What anger am I using to punish myself? What stories am I silently rehearsing that keep me trapped in cycles of pain? Then release it. Write it out. Breathe it out. Speak forgiveness, not for them, but for yourself. You don't need to fix everything tonight. You just need to stop poisoning your sleep with what you should have let go yesterday. Because sleep is not just about closing your eyes. It's about closing the day. And you can't begin again tomorrow if you're still bleeding from yesterday. Number 6, use visualization before sleep. Your brain does not distinguish well between what is vividly imagined and what is physically experienced. This is not spiritual fluff, it's neuroscience. The same neural pathways fire when you visualize an action as when you perform it. The Stoics understood this, even if they didn't have brain scans to prove it. They called it praemeditatio futurorum, the practice of anticipating challenges, not to worry, but to prepare. But visualization isn't just for protection, it's also a powerful tool for creation. Marcus Aurelius would rehearse adversity in his mind, not to suffer twice, but to suffer less. He imagined betrayal, loss, illness, not to feed fear, but to strengthen his emotional immune system. He visualized how a wise man would respond, with calm, with patience, with virtue, and then he aimed to meet that standard. That's the Stoic use of imagination, not as fantasy, but as disciplined mental training. And the best time to train the mind is when it is soft, open, and quiet, just before sleep. Modern performance psychology mirrors this ancient practice. Athletes visualize before championships. Surgeons rehearse complex procedures mentally. Soldiers train in simulation before combat. Not because it's hopeful, but because it's effective. Research shows that imagining successful outcomes boosts confidence, reduces anxiety, and even improves physical precision. The same applies to emotional resilience. If you visualize yourself grounded and unshaken in tomorrow's conflict, your body and brain begin to memorize that version of you. Here's the key: it only works when done vividly. Not just "I want to be calm," but actually seeing yourself pause before reacting. Hearing your voice steady and clear, feeling your breath deepen, your body relax. Your brain responds to vivid mental texture, color, movement, emotion. The more real it feels, the more powerfully it imprints. And this is where most people fall short. They visualize vaguely, but the Stoics would demand more precision. Like sculptors of the soul, they shaped character through deliberate internal rehearsal. You're not just wishing, you're becoming. Every night becomes a rehearsal for how you'll live tomorrow. A modern example, Jim Carrey. Before he became a household name, he would drive to Mulholland Drive and visualize directors praising his performances. He wrote himself a check for $10 million and dated it for the future. It wasn't luck. It wasn't magic. It was mental architecture. He trained his identity through daily mental rehearsal. And though his example is financial, the principle is universal. It works for peace, strength, and self-command. So tonight, instead of falling asleep to randomness, direct the final scene. Visualize not just what you want, but who you must become to achieve it. See yourself handling pressure with stillness. Picture yourself walking away from insult, holding your values, protecting your peace. Because your brain is always watching, and what you show it before sleep becomes a script it rehearses again and again. Use that script wisely, because if you can see it clearly enough and often enough, the mind will start believing it. And once the mind believes, it begins to act. And that's how transformation begins. Not through chance, but through rehearsal. Number 7, surround your sleep with positivity. Most people guard their bodies better than their minds. They lock their doors at night, turn on alarms, check the windows, yet leave their inner world wide open to fear, chaos, and distraction. What surrounds you before sleep isn't just aesthetic, it's psychological. Your environment is either reinforcing peace or reinforcing tension. And the Stoics knew this long before neuroscience caught up. Epictetus told his students, "The key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best." Sur basuin. While this referred to people, the same principle applies to your environment. Your surroundings are company. What you hear, see, and feel in the hour before sleep speaks directly to your nervous system. It teaches your brain what to expect, whether that's danger, noise, clutter, or calm, clarity, and safety. Consider this. Your sleep doesn't begin when your head hits the pillow. It begins the moment your mind starts winding down. And what surrounds you during that transition, the lighting, the sounds, the conversations, the last content you consume, those things set the emotional tone your brain will carry through the night. Now imagine falling asleep with the TV blaring violent news, with harsh overhead lights, with clutter all around you, with your phone lighting up every few minutes. That's not rest. That's survival mode. And the body, when it senses chaos, holds on to tension, even during sleep. Even if you fall asleep, your mind remains on guard. And no healing happens when the guard is always up. But the Stoics would do the opposite. They would cleanse not only the mind but the setting. They kept their lives simple, their dwellings orderly, their attention undivided. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." But even he knew the outer world must support the inner one. Peace doesn't arise in clutter, and clarity doesn't bloom in noise. Think of Maya Angelou. She rented hotel rooms just to write, not because she needed luxury, but because she needed simplicity. Clean walls, silence, no distractions. She understood that the space around her was the stage for the thoughts within her. You don't need a hotel. You just need to make your room a temple of calm. So how do you apply this before sleep? Start small. Dim the lights. Tidy your room. Choose silence or calming sounds. Light a candle if it helps. Put your phone in another room. These are not rituals of comfort. They are rituals of command. They tell your nervous system, it's safe now. You can release. You can breathe. And don't forget, what you consume matters. Don't scroll through noise. Don't end your day with conflict. Instead, read something meaningful. Listen to music that opens your chest. Speak gently to yourself. Fill the space with signals of peace so your subconscious knows where to go. Because you don't just fall asleep into a void. You fall asleep into the environment you've created. And if you build that environment with care, your mind will respond in kind. Not just at night, but every morning you wake. Number 8, protect your sleep environment. You can't heal in the same environment that made you sick. And that includes your sleep space. In a world that constantly demands your attention, your bedroom must become your sanctuary. Not a dumping ground for stress, not a charging station for electronics, and definitely not an extension of your office. It must be a boundary, a line that says, here, the mind rests. Here, the soul resets. The Stoics may not have spoken of sleep hygiene, but their lives were built around structure, ritual, and clarity. Seneca wrote, "We should take wandering thoughts and bring them to rest." That doesn't happen by accident. It happens through intention, through design, through a space that teaches the mind to let go of the day and enter a state of renewal. Today, most people sleep in chaos and call it normal. Notifications flicker. To-do lists hover. The last light they see is a screen. The final sounds are alarms, pings, arguments from social media. You may think you're asleep, but your mind is processing noise. And your body, sensing no safety, remains on guard. Tight, tense, shallow in breath. You wake up tired not because you slept too little, but because you never truly rested. Protecting your sleep environment means reclaiming your space from the noise of the world. It means drawing a line between you and the demands that don't belong in your sanctuary. The Stoics taught that we are disturbed not by events, but by our judgments about them. But when you bring every event into your bedroom, through screens, conversations, or mental clutter, you make it impossible to judge clearly. You drag the world in with you, and your mind never gets to be alone. Leonardo da Vinci understood this deeply. He wasn't just a genius in art, he was a guardian of focus. His workspace and rest space were minimal, uncluttered, designed with care. Why? Because he knew the power of clarity. He protected his mental state like a sacred flame, and in return, that flame gave him brilliance. So ask yourself, what does your space say about your state? Is your room a refuge, or is it a war zone? Do you use it to recharge or relive the day's battles? Create a nightly ritual of closure. Turn off your screens an hour before bed. Dim the lights. Use scent, texture, and quiet to signal your brain. This is the end. This is peace. Breathe slowly. Write down your last thoughts. Let the day go. Not everything needs to follow you into the dark, especially the things that don't serve your healing. Protect your sleep like a Stoic protects his soul. Not with force, but with boundaries. Because if you don't decide what stays out, everything comes in. And the person you are tomorrow will be built from the quality of the rest you allow tonight. Respect that space. Honor that rest. Guard it like it's sacred, because it is. Because that sacred space holds your next transformation. And it begins in silence. Number 9. Sleep is your reset button. Most people think of sleep as a passive escape, a break from life. But the truth is far more powerful. Sleep isn't a pause, it's a reset. It's the body's most ancient form of healing. It's the mind's sacred window to rewire, release, and return. If you don't respect that, you don't just lose sleep. You lose clarity, presence, and strength. The Stoics may not have studied neuroscience, but they understood cycles, natural rhythms of tension and release, input and reflection. Marcus Aurelius observed, "Time is like a river, a violent current of events, glimpsed once and carried away." Sleep is our way of stepping briefly to the shore, so we don't drown in that current. It is the restoration between the storms, the quiet after battle, the breath before the next act. Yet today, we treat sleep like an afterthought. We fight it, delay it, fill it with stimulation. We expect to run full speed, crash, and somehow wake up whole. But nature doesn't work that way. If you deny the body what it needs to reset, the mind starts dragging yesterday's burdens into tomorrow. Fear, guilt, resentment. They don't dissolve with time. They dissolve with stillness, real restorative stillness. That's why what you bring into sleep matters more than most people realize. If you go to bed unresolved, overstimulated, or ungrateful, you're not sleeping. You're recycling emotional waste. And night after night, that emotional residue hardens. It becomes your baseline. You start to believe you're naturally anxious, always overwhelmed, forever tired. But the truth is, you've just never given yourself a full reset. Elite performers understand this well. LeBron James reportedly sleeps over 10 hours a night. Roger Federer too. Why? Because they know the body and brain aren't built to run on depletion. They're built to thrive on cycles. Performance isn't just effort. It's recovery. Strength isn't just action. It's the ability to pause without guilt. That's what real discipline looks like. Seneca, in his letters, advised that every evening should end with reflection. Not to obsess, but to release. When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, he wrote, I examined my entire day. He didn't carry every regret into the night. He processed it, learned from it, then let it go. That's not indulgence. That's purification. So tonight, take back that power. Don't let sleep be accidental. Make it sacred. Light a candle. Reflect on your actions. Speak gently to your mind. Breathe deeply. Leave your battles at the door. Sleep isn't a retreat. It's a return to self, to strength, to wholeness. And above all, trust the process. Just because you're unconscious doesn't mean you're inactive. Your body heals. Your mind organizes. Your spirit clears. That's not sleep. That's transformation. That's rebirth in silence. Let sleep become your sanctuary, not your escape. Let it carry you, not crush you. Because how you enter the night decides how you show up for the morning. Because sleep isn't the end of consciousness, it's the beginning of healing. And every night, you're handed that opportunity. The question is, will you waste it or will you honor it? Number 10, the person you sleep as is the person you wake as. Every night, you are given the chance to shed the weight of the day and step into something new. But most people don't. They carry their grudges into sleep like old coats. They lie in bed rehearsing arguments, clinging to regrets, fearing tomorrow before it even arrives. Then they wake up exhausted, bitter, confused as to why life feels like a loop. But the truth is simple. Your sleep doesn't change you if your mind is still chained to yesterday. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus taught that we are not disturbed by things, but by the views we take of them. And the last view you take before sleep becomes the lens through which your subconscious continues to interpret the world. If that final thought is fear, resentment, or shame, that's what gets reinforced. But if it's clarity, peace, and self-respect, then that becomes the emotional tone of your entire night and the shape of your next day. Your identity is not fixed. It's sculpted through repetition, especially the kind that happens when you're not even aware of it. That's why sleep isn't a time to ignore your thoughts. It's a time to guide them. The mind doesn't turn off at night. It reviews, integrates, replays. So when you choose what you carry into sleep, you're effectively programming who you'll become. If you bring in chaos, you'll rise in confusion. But if you bring in intention, you'll rise with purpose. This is why rituals matter. The Stoics believed in preparing the soul just as much as preparing the body. Marcus Aurelius often ended his evenings with reminders of virtue. He'd tell himself that life is short, that anger is petty, that external things don't matter. Not because he needed motivation, but because he understood that identity is shaped in silence, especially in the final thoughts before sleep. So tonight, don't just collapse into bed with a heavy mind and expect lightness in the morning. Take 5 minutes to breathe. Reflect on what you did right, not just what went wrong. Release the people who hurt you. Forgive yourself where you failed. Set an intention, not for perfection, but for peace. Let that be the final message your mind receives before it slips into the subconscious. Let that be the seed you water through the night. And if you're thinking, will this really change me? Remember, nothing changes until you do. Nothing heals until you allow it. This isn't about tricking your mind. It's about rebuilding it, breath by breath, choice by choice. Even your dreams are shaped by what you believe you deserve. So believe something better. Believe in your own peace. Believe in your right to rest deeply and rise whole. Because when you wake, you don't just carry your body into the new day, you carry your mind. And if your mind is still burdened with old stories, you'll repeat them. But if your mind is clean, you'll create new ones. So remember this, you don't become a new person in the morning. You become them the moment you choose to let go the night before. Your sleep is not the end of the day. It's the beginning of who you become. Every night you get to choose, carry the weight or release it. Recycle the chaos or reset your soul. If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just about better sleep. It's about reclaiming your peace, your mind, your life. So if this message resonated with you, like the video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more Stoic tools to strengthen your inner world. Because peace isn't random, it's something you train for, night after night,